Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on Entity Television. I'm Steve Lance. Multiple U.S. federal agencies have been hit by a global cyber attack. Here's the latest.
The global cyber attack exploits a vulnerability in a widely used file transfer software known as MOVEit. CNN first reported on the attack, citing information from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. The agency said in a statement that it is, quote, providing support to several federal agencies that have experienced intrusions affecting their MOVEit applications. We are working urgently to understand impacts and ensure timely remediation. The director of CISA told MSNBC that they don't expect the attack to have significant impact. CISA didn't identify the agencies that were hit or say exactly how they had been affected. Also, no words on what groups may be behind the attack. Progress, the U.S. firm that owns the MOVEit software, has also urged victims to update their software packages and has issued security advice. Also on Thursday, a cybersecurity firm reported a separate cyber attack by suspected state-backed Chinese hackers. Mandiant, which is owned by Google, said in a report that Chinese hackers breached hundreds of public and private networks globally. Over half of the organizations targeted are in the Americas. The rest are in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
The White House continuing to use the term MAGA, despite getting a warning about trying to influence an election. What is the latest and what exactly is the Hatch Act? NTD's R-Ariz has more from the White House.
According to a latest report by Axios, White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates sent out a memo on Wednesday criticizing what he calls MAGA windfall and MAGA tax welfare. But that comes just days after the Office of Special Counsel issued an official warning to Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, saying that she violated the Hatch Act by using the term MAGA Republicans to generate opposition to Republican candidates in her official capacity.
Congressional Republicans ranging from the right MAGA, when he talks about what MAGA Republicans are doing, he's mentioned that before. Republicans and MAGA Republicans voted on this bill.
Specifically, the watchdog group says the press secretary violated the Hatch Act prohibition against using her official authority or influence for the purpose of interfering with or affecting the result of an election. But the press secretary defended herself this week by saying this.
We did not know their opinion when we were able to use when we were given the green light to actually say the comments that I made.
But it's also notable that Hatch Act violations are not uncommon. At least 13 officials under the Trump administration were also accused of violating the Hatch Act. And there's actually little that the Office of Special Counsel can do except for just issuing warnings. So it remains to be seen if the current White House will actually change course when it comes to using the term MAGA. Reporting from the White House, R-Ariz, NTD News.
Democrats and Republicans stepping behind a bill to provide a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients. NTD's Melina Wisecup hears voices from both sides of the political spectrum. A sense of compromise is in the air, with some Democrats expressing the need for border solutions, some Republicans expressing the need for immigration reform. Melina, what can you tell us?
We did hear lawmakers expressing a point of view on this issue that's not your usual set of talking points, and we'll get into that a bit later. But first, what this bill, the American Dream and Promise Act, will do. So it's a time-bound piece of legislation that would provide a pathway to citizenship for people who have been here for a number of years. The bill also addresses illegal immigrants who are under other forms of status, such as the temporary protected status. Here's what Democrats and Republicans who are sponsoring this bill are saying about it.
They stood with us in different ways, including serving in our military. We should stand with them.
This is bipartisan, it's right, it's strong, and it's time. So I will tell my colleagues, maybe more on my side of the aisle, get ready.
Later, after votes, we caught up with various lawmakers to hear their thoughts on such a bill. And like you mentioned, there wasn't the usual political rhetoric that we normally hear around this sort of issue. Some Democrats were open to border security, and some Republicans were open to a DACA solution. Take a look.
We obviously have to have borders that are functional, that work. If there is a way to do something that helps these people who are Americans by every other measure, I just have to see the bill. We need to be exporting capitalism. I personally am working with some people from Guatemala to develop businesses down there.
We need to work on border issues. I get it, and we need to do that. But for the DACA kids, we really need a clean path for them.
And one argument we've repeatedly heard from Republicans about a pathway to citizenship bill is that they're concerned this type of bill would encourage more illegal immigration, thus making it even more difficult to secure the border.
How would you quell that concern from Republicans?
Well, as I said, it's a time-limited piece of legislation. So if you're not here by a certain date, it doesn't apply to you. A circular flow migration is what we used to have a long time ago, and it essentially allows people to come and to go. So if you make it extremely difficult to cross a border, then people are going to stay.
Still, some Republicans are casting doubt that the border security provisions will make it in the end.
The last time we cut a deal on immigration was Ronald Reagan in '86, and the Democrats said that they would secure the border, and they never did.
But overall, the question of whether this type of bill could actually pass during this Congress comes down to leadership. Is this something that Speaker McCarthy would be willing to push through a GOP-led House? And also, this comes at a time when the GOP-led Committee on the Homeland Security just launched a 5-phase investigation into DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over what they call his inability or unwillingness to secure the border. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
It's been a few days now since former President Trump was arraigned in Florida on federal charges. Joining us next to offer his thoughts on the indictment, we have Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, Congressman, is there a consensus among House Republicans when it comes to Trump's latest indictment on federal charges? And as an attorney yourself, how are you assessing the overall case?
Well, when you say consensus, I think I don't know if I'd say consensus, but there's certainly a majority of us that view this with a high degree of skepticism. And I think all, if not most, agree that this is a political, a politically motivated indictment and charges, and that there's just being disparate treatment against President Trump vis-a-vis, say, a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden or a Hunter Biden, or even oddly enough, people like interim director of FBI Andy McCabe, or others that have admitted that they lied to Congress, such as James Comey, former director of the FBI. So that sense, I think everybody's in agreement that this is disparate, politically motivated. So when you have that, then you ask about my take on it. It's the same thing. It is politically motivated. And I look at the specific counts of the indictment, and one really sticks out as being utterly fabricated, and that is an espionage charge. I mean, to say that Donald Trump was engaged in espionage because he had documents at his house, that's bizarro. And again, you focus at it and you say, this is a bunch of documents that he actually had the authority to have just weeks before. So I look at the whole thing as being extraordinarily damaging to the country on a political basis, but also on a cultural basis, because it erodes further trust in our political institutions and our government institutions. And as long as we continue to erode our trust that way, I think people will feel disenfranchised as citizens of the United States to a certain extent.
To your point, I want to follow up on your last point there. You represent a district with both Democrats and Republicans, your constituents. What are you hearing from them?
Well, I'm hearing from the vast majority of my district, since it's mostly Republican, and then second most is Independents, then third is Democrats. I'm hearing a lot of disgruntlement and anger and frustration over this indictment. Now, on the other side, we have people calling up that are happy, and I think that's really part of and parcel of the problem. Is they're happy that their political opponent. This is more than just just a normal indictment. This is a politically motivated, and this is their political opponent, and so people people on my side, for instance, the Republicans, they're upset. People on the other side, they're happy. But it does get to this political motivation thing because it's a political opponent.
Congressman, do you think former President Trump will get a fair trial in Florida with Judge Cannon, who he appointed, overseeing the case, or is there something to be said about the theory Miami being more democratic and will ultimately be up to the jury, which will be pulled from Miami, which is one of the bluest areas in the state? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, at this point, I don't know that Donald Trump can get a fair trial anywhere in the United States of America. And that the evidence of that is 7 years of bogus investigations, prosecutions, impeachments, and that is kind of going to carry off with whatever jury he sits in front of. I don't think anyone can get a fair trial if you're, or anywhere in the United States if you're Donald Trump. So I think that the left has really done its job in tainting potential jury pools, and that's part of the reason that this is just, in my opinion, really grossly unfair.
Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.